How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome this week before Christmas. You still got a week to do your Christmas shopping. You better speed it up, though. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, this is the first year I think all of the presents that I have gotten from my family, they all know. Everybody knows. My wife, so if you're in Georgia or Alabama for that matter, actually, for those of you listening over in Alabama, particularly the eastern part of the state, it's actually not far for you in middle eastern Alabama. The mid part of the state on the east side of Montgomery, Callaway Gardens. I was kind of shocked. So our local newspaper here in Atlanta, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, did a thing on Christmas light displays in Georgia, and they left out Callaway Gardens. If you've never been to Callaway Gardens, you should consider this is not an ad. This is just legit. They need to upgrade their golf courses. They do. Their golf courses aren't fantastic. They're okay, and they're better than they were. They were undergoing renovation. But y'all, this place, you can get a cabin. It's like 25,000 acres. There's fishing on the lakes. There's golf. They've got this birds of prey exhibit. They've got a butterfly house where they grow butterflies. You can go in with your kids and see the butterflies. They got some great restaurants in the area. It is a great place to get away if you go to Callaway Gardens. And during Christmas, from Thanksgiving until the 1st of next year, they have this light display, and it is hundreds of thousands of lights. And my wife's birthday is Wednesday. And all she wanted for her birthday was a trip to see the lights at Callaway Gardens. So we're going to go this coming weekend. And so she knows about it. My son, for his birthday, wanted a piano. So he's got it. His birthday was last week. My wife's is this week. And then my son wanted a trip to Las Vegas to see a hockey game for Christmas. And I'm going to take my kid to Las Vegas the weekend after Christmas to see the Golden Knights play. It's a spectacle to see that team play. So he already knows what he's getting. My daughter will be surprised by her gifts, but basically she gave us a list and we bought stuff off her list. I'm the hard one to buy for. I want a golf net and mat. So I've got a golf coach. His name is Kyle Morris. He works north of Atlanta, Cartersville Country Club. If you're looking for somebody to give you lessons, go to Kyle Morris. He's great. You'll have to drive. Those of you from California who are listening to the program, you'll have to drive over here. He's great. Just save some time for me to go. But he told me I need a mat and a net. So that's on my Christmas list. I don't know that I'll get them because I'm buying my dog a Christmas, and the dog is the most expensive present. The dog's more expensive than the piano or the gift or the trip to Las Vegas. Nonetheless, I digress. Your time is running out. Now, the phone number here, 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program. What I really want for Christmas is more radio stations. I'm going to be getting some. More details on that later, but I want more. I want all the radio stations. That's if you're a praying person, pray for me that I get all the radio stations because I'm getting all these solicitations from NetJets and FlexJets about flying private. I can't afford it. Or the winning lottery ticket tomorrow, the Mega Millions. I'll take the winning lottery ticket too to buy a ticket, but nonetheless. All right, we got to go to Donald Trump. Occasionally, this is why I like doing live radio. You have a set thing you want to talk about, and the news happens, and you gotta pivot. Donald Trump has given a press conference today. SoftBank, the Singapore, I think they're Singaporean or South Korean Singaporean bank, is going to commit to $100 million of new development in the United States once Trump becomes president, already creating jobs he is. He says he does not know if Laura Trump will get the nod from Ron DeSantis in Florida, and he's not super optimistic that she'll be the nominee, and he's okay with that. He's also saying that if members of the Republicans conference in the Senate oppose his nominees, if they got legit reasons for doing so, he's not going to challenge them. That's a open door on opposing Robert Kennedy, though Trump says vaccines are not going away if Kennedy becomes HHS secretary. There's some huge concerns about Robert Kennedy. I myself think he's a horrible human being who should not be anywhere near power. But nonetheless, hopefully the Republicans will kill that nomination. But one of the things Donald Trump said, in stark contrast to so many people, this is Donald Trump on Luigi Mangione.
And what do you make of the reaction
I think
around the suspected shooter? Does that tell you anything about how people
I think it's a
about
terrible thing. I think it's really terrible that some people seem to admire him, like him. And I was happy to see that it wasn't specific to this gentleman that was killed. It's just an overall sickness as opposed to a specific sickness. That was a terrible thing. It was cold-blooded, just a cold-blooded, horrible killing. And how people can like this guy is, that's a sickness, actually. That's really very bad, especially the way it was done. It was so bad, right in the back. And very bad, very thing like that. You can't believe that some people, and maybe it's fake news. I don't know. It's hard to believe that that can even be thought of. But it seems that there's
Trump provided no buts, no caveats, no carve-outs, no exceptions. Unlike all the Democrats, one of the latest being Bernie Sanders.
Elizabeth Warren obviously understands killing and murder and shooting somebody in the back is totally unacceptable.
But
what I think has happened in the last few months is that what you have seen rising up is people's anger at a health insurance industry which denies people the health care that they desperately need while they make billions and billions of dollars in profit.
Y'all, King Henry, what was it, the second or the fourth? I can't remember which one. It was one of the Henrys in England. Said, "Who will rid me of this turbulent priest or meddlesome priest?" And he got the Archbishop of Canterbury murdered. Someone wanted to impress the king. And his words provoked murder. We now know Luigi Mangione had no business with that insurance company. He was not a client. He was not an insured. He wasn't. We also know that this insurance company CEO who Luigi Mangione murdered, allegedly, during COVID, used the resources of his insurance company to prop up a lot of hospitals that otherwise weren't going to get paid. And so his insurance company probably kept your local hospital afloat during COVID, leveraged massive amounts of money, told the federal government, pay me back later. Let's just keep the hospitals afloat. And his insurance company did that. He, Brian Thompson, did that. Sound like a monster to you? Kept your local hospital in business, leveraged the funds of his insurance company to make sure that hospitals would stay in business, told the federal government, look, I'll keep a tab, you pay me back later, and the federal government paid him back. Donald Trump is one of the only politicians in America at his level to stand up and not add a but. Said it was a sickness. People cheering on this guy. It's sick. He's absolutely right. Words mean things. And you know what? When Bernie Sanders goes on television and says killing is wrong, but look at all the people upset about health care insurance in this country, Bernie Sanders voted to make it worse. Bernie Sanders better hope people don't take him seriously on this and go start shooting up politicians, because Bernie Sanders will be a target. God forbid that happen. Do not want that to happen. But if Bernie Sanders wants to add a but, we should say, but Bernie Sanders is one of the people who broke the system, and so is Elizabeth Warren. The Babylon Bee had a story over the weekend. This is the headline from the Babylon Bee. Now, let's not be so hasty to find and assassinate everyone responsible for the healthcare crisis, says nervous Barack Obama. Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. In the wake of the assassination of the United Health CEO, former President Barack Obama stepped forward to calm tensions by reminding Americans not to be too hasty to find and assassinate everybody responsible for the healthcare crisis. In an only slightly nervous statement to the nation, a visibly sweating Obama reminded people not to jump into hunting down and killing everyone who might be considered responsible for causing the terrible state of American healthcare. Quote, now, let's not get carried away here, said Obama, tapping the floor faster and faster as his eyebrow inadvertently twitched. Surely the answer here isn't more violence. After all, we can't just go around slaughtering all the people responsible for our messed up healthcare system, now can we? All I'm saying is let's not be overly rushed about this. Sources report Obama then walked somewhat quickly back to his armored security detail, casting quick glances to his left and right as he went. It's very well done. I mean, if people are going to start targeting individuals for screwing up our healthcare system in the country, the Democrats who voted for Obamacare should be target number one, not health insurance companies who are only operating in the system Obama, Bernie Sanders, and the Democrats designed. But they're not even thinking about that, are they? They're not thinking about the repercussions for themselves. They never think the violence will be directed at them. They always think it'll be at Republicans or at health insurance executives or oil company executives. Their butts are always designed to cover their own butts and no one else. Violence is unacceptable and killing people is always wrong. Democrats seem to never understand where their rhetoric leads us. For multiple years, Democrats called Donald Trump a threat to democracy, a would-be authoritarian, and on MSNBC on a daily basis, they pleaded, will someone rid us of this turbulent presidential candidate? And someone tried to, and took off a piece of Donald Trump's ear. And then someone else tried to, hiding in the bushes at his golf course waiting for him. And someone else tried to from Iran. 3 different assassination attempts. And one we forget about because the person never got onto the field with the gun. But we had 2 different people, one in the bushes at a golf course and one on a roof in Butler, Pennsylvania. That one actually pulled his trigger and came within about a half an inch to an inch of killing Donald Trump because the left kept saying, MSNBC kept saying, Democrats kept saying, who will rid us of this turbulent presidential candidate? And someone tried to. When you keep going on television and saying, killing people is bad, but we understand, but insurance is broken, but the outrage is understandable, Democrats at some point, someone's going to say, isn't this Obamacare? Barack Obama. Yeah, some crazy person's going to connect dots you don't want connected in the system you yourselves voted for. Let's pull up the votes of the people who authorized Obamacare. Bernie Sanders, you're on the list. You broke the system. People are now gunning down CEOs. Just wait for some crazy person to ask who broke the system. You're playing a dangerous game, and only Donald Trump seems to be the one to understand this, that these people are sick. They are mentally not well. And when you have a mentally not well, sick person and they come looking for someone to blame, they just might blame the people who broke the healthcare system. And breaking the healthcare system has a name. It's called Obamacare. And the first 2 syllables are someone's name. That guy gets Secret Service protection. What about the rest of you? It's a dangerous, 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 dangerous game you're playing. And you don't seem to care because you think you are invulnerable to the rhetoric. You are invulnerable to it. You're not. None of us are. That's why you have to say firmly and stridently, murdering someone is wrong, period. End of story. No buts. The fact that Democrats can't do that is a damning indictment on them and their mental stability. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. The phone number 877-973-7425. Bob, I'm going to go to you now. You've waited very patiently. It's time for your call. Bob, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
Hey, listen, I want to give a shout out, or I guess a prayer out to the students, faculty, and parents of the students of the school up in Madison, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to live about 200 yards behind Appalachia High School, so I know exactly what they're going through up there. And in fact, my grandson was 2 classrooms down from where the shooting happened. So I'm kind of really familiar with what's happening up there with all the police cars, the press, the helicopters, and all that. And around here, it was an absolute mess. So, I'd like to just give a shout out to the people up there and tell them that there are people praying for them.
I appreciate it a ton. Now, Bob, I want to give you time here. You got about a minute, 30 seconds, though, to get to why you called beyond that, but I sure appreciate that.
Okay. Yes, I would like to comment on the deportation, and I think the government ought to give them some incentive. I think a plane ticket and $1,000 spending money would get a lot of interest and get a lot of people out a lot cheaper than it would be to try to round them up and deport them.
Maybe we could get some of the progressives out of here too. Say, we'll give you $1,000 on a plane ticket. You can go to Paris. Now, not a bad idea. Of course, the press would have a field day with the economic costs of, oh my gosh, do you know how much it's going to cost to get these people out of the country? Well, yeah, okay.
What's it costing to keep them in the country?
Exactly. That's the side of the story no one in the media wants to talk about is the healthcare costs, the education costs, the food costs, the social service costs, the housing costs, all these costs to keep these people in the country as opposed to saying, you know what, we're going to send you home now. We should send them home now. It is time for them to go home. And then get in line and do it the legitimate way. You can come back to the country, just you need to stand in line and come back to the country legally, please. Now, I got to tell you about one of the great groups that has common sense conservative solutions on dealing with illegal immigration. That is Americans for Prosperity. They'd love to have you on board. You can go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer and sign up with Americans for Prosperity. If you do, they've got chapters in just about every single state now. In a couple, they don't, but they've got people organizing those chapters, and you would be able to help. And they advocate for common sense conservative solutions on the border, for schools, for families, for small businesses. All you do is go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. And listen, if you don't want to be a door knocker, if you don't want to be an activist, if you don't want to show up at your local government or your state government to advocate for common sense conservative solutions, you can at least be informed so your friends who are interested in it can come to you and get actual facts and information. Go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer today. Sign up with AFP. Be an activist in your own community. Be more informed than everyone else in your community. Join up with Americans for Prosperity. When we come back, we got to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about, the Hunga Tunga Hunga volcano. Nobody wants to talk about Hunga Tunga Hunga. I just want to say its name again, but there's a real reason to when we come back. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. If you would please text the word ARMY, ARMY, to 33777 so you can sign up for the army of activists when we start. We will open it up in January when the new Congress convenes, get people calling to support President Trump's cabinet picks, most of them, not all of them, and more. There is some breaking news I got to bring you up to speed with. Two things happening right now. One is it appears Justin Trudeau will be summoning the Canadian Parliament to resign or prorogue it, meaning essentially send Parliament home. There's only so much he can do without it, but the speculation in Canada is that Justin Trudeau will be resigning. The bigger news is that the U.S. military has launched strikes in Syria, killing 12 ISIS fighters in Assad regime and Russian-controlled areas. The United States has done these overnight already, and now a second one happening about right now, just about 15 minutes ago, launching an attack in Syria to kill ISIS fighters. Essentially, the Syrian rebels have taken over, and a portion of those Syrian rebels are ISIS fighters. Now that the Syrian rebels have taken over, they're like, you know what, we're done fighting everybody now. In fact, the Syrian rebels who have taken over have started fighting Hamas and Hezbollah at the Syrian-Lebanese border. And the ISIS fighters are turning on the Syrian rebels. So the Syrian rebels who have taken over have now asked the United States for further assistance in blowing up ISIS. And so we are helping the Syrian rebels blow up ISIS inside Syria so the rebels can begin a peaceful transition of power. The Syrian rebels, you should note, are also working with Israel to attack Hezbollah and Hamas on the Lebanese border. Pretty impressive things that are happening over there right now, largely just ignoring the Biden administration, but they have kindly at least stood up and engaged. Now, NBC News as well reporting 5 dead and 5 injured at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. The shooter there appears to have been a student at the school who is now deceased, according to current press reports. Sad tragedy happening there. Be in prayer for those people. Just as an aside, here we are a week before Christmas, week and a few days before Christmas. Some families have presents wrapped under the tree for a child who is now dead. So whenever this happens, and I see it happening now, I get asked, I mean, how can you believe in a God who would let something like this happen? It happens all the time. 5 kids are dead, as far as we know. 5 people are dead at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. The shooter, a juvenile, is dead. Current reports are that the shooter was also at the school. And as I'm saying this, I just see a report from Tom Winter at NBC News. Madison police are correcting themselves. They said 3 were dead, and then they said 5 were dead. They now say 3 are dead, including the shooter. So the shooter and 2 others, they are not identifying those people, but 3 people dead. Someone already bought Christmas presents for someone who will now not be there. And inevitably, when this happens, particularly when it happens at a Christian school, it's not just social media trolls. It is people in the wild, people in the world saying, how can this be? If there really is a God, surely he wouldn't let this happen right before Christmas at a Christian school. I take this one personally, not because I'm a believer, an evangelical, a Christian, born again, a Presbyterian, grew up Baptist, whatever you want to say. I take it personally because I get this question asked by people who mean well when it comes to my wife. And they say, how could you believe in a God who would give your wife cancer? Not just any cancer, but one for which there is no cure. Stage 4 lung cancer. But you know what the ones that make me mad? I have an answer for these people. You know the ones that make me mad? And it happens all the time. It's the people who come up to me, and these are people oftentimes in churches. And they say, has your wife tried this? You should research this essential oil or hydrogen. I had somebody tell my wife she should be drinking hydrogen peroxide. or an essential oil, the number of people who have insisted that if my wife would take regular doses of frankincense, it would get rid of her stage 4 genetic lung cancer. Those are actually the ones that aggravate me, because those are the people who actually are suggesting in their love and well-meaning approach that, you really haven't done all you can do. If only you had read this one website and taken this one essential oil. Those are actually the ones that make me mad. And they don't mean to be mad. They don't mean to make me mad. But my God, people, do you really think we haven't researched into what can we do to cure my wife of stage 4 lung cancer? Oh, if only we knew about this one essential oil. Oh, those are the ones that infuriate me. And it's always it's never a guy. I got to say this. It's never a man. It's always a well-meaning woman who wants to say, if only you tried this one thing. And they don't mean it bad, but the implication is you clearly haven't done enough research. But when there's a tragedy, the same people show up. The same people show up and say, oh, I guess God's not real. Because if he was real, there's no way he would let this tragedy happen. Within 2 years of the birth of the man we call Jesus, King Herod sent soldiers to Bethlehem, and they murdered hundreds of toddlers, all boys, because men from the east came to Jerusalem to worship the King of the Jews, and Herod thought that was him. And those magi went down to Bethlehem to worship him when we're told, don't go back to Jerusalem, go home a different way. And Herod went to his scholars, and they all said it was predicted that the King of the Jews would be born in Bethlehem. So he sent men there. Clearly, passage of time had happened. He sent people to Bethlehem and murdered all the baby boys up to 2 years old just to make sure he got the right one. And Jesus and his family had been tipped off by an angel and fled to Egypt and was spared. But there was mass murder there. And not only was God real, God ran away with his family as a baby to avoid the mass murder. So I assure you, God is real, and mass murder still happens. Why? Because we live in a fallen world. People are sinful, and there are monsters. But God loves me and you and my wife so much that he came to this planet as a baby, lived an entirely sin-free, perfect existence, and was murdered himself. Tortured, beaten to within an inch of his life, nailed to a cross for all the world to see. All the world's sins piled up on him, so much so the sky itself went black. And he died. He loved me so much he was willing to take the slings. He was willing to take the stabs. He was willing to take the rocks. He was willing to take the nails. He was willing to take a crown of thorn. He was willing to bleed, and he was willing to die because he wants a relationship with us that bad. He didn't escape the world and all its sin and suffering, and we don't get to either. Bad things have always happened, and bad things will happen. He was born into death, and he died into death. All these people around him died, and then he ultimately died. So when people come calling and they say, how can you believe a God who would allow kids to be killed at a Christian school the week before Christmas, or at Covenant in Nashville, or wherever it happens? Evil is real. Evil got God. But he loves us so much he conquered the grave. We don't get an escape from this world, but neither did he. I believe that. You may not. But the heckling and cajoling and the belittling of people who just lost a loved one in a school, it's a damning indictment on those of you who asked the question. On your character. We are truly, as Paul said, fools. Christians are. If we believe it and it's not real, because we've wasted a whole lot of time telling people about something that didn't happen, and maybe you should pity us instead of mock us if that's the case. But I believe it's real. I believe it's real. Look, here we have, I was actually going to talk about climate change, but this is our sad breaking news of the day, 3 dead. The reports have been conflicting between 5 dead and 3 dead at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. Police have clarified now and said it's 3, not 5. One of the 3 is the shooter, who is a juvenile who they presume went to the school. We don't know the other details. The details will come. It's bad enough. It could be worse. Those of you at Sandy Hook or Appalachia, you're in my listening audience right now. I'm thinking of y'all too. These stories are always hard on y'all. Those of you down in Parkland, you're in my listening area as well. I've got radio stations in all those markets. Parkland in Florida, Sandy Hook in Connecticut, Appalachia here outside of Atlanta. I know this story will be raw for all of you because of what you went through. Particularly at a holiday season, knowing that there are presents under a tree for someone who's not now going to be there to open those presents. It's always tough. It's always tough. And the ghouls come out and they want them, particularly at a school like this, or look at Covenant School in Nashville. And isn't it striking how quick the police were to release Luigi Mangione's letter? I won't call it a manifesto. It was just a 2-page letter on why he wanted to kill Brian Thompson, the insurance CEO, and we still don't have Audrey Hale's manifesto. They've done their best to release it. It's been to not release it. It's been leaked here and there. They wanted to cover that one, and now we've got this awful situation. And all the ghouls show up and say, maybe it was staged, maybe it wasn't real, or your God must mock you to do this at Christmas. God doesn't mock. God is mocked. And those who ask the question are mocking a God who came to earth and died on a cross. He himself suffered because we don't get an escape. My wife doesn't get an escape from cancer, not because there is no God or he doesn't love her or he's punishing her, but it's the nature of this twisted, sinful world. But he will make all things new. I believe that. I do. I believe it outside of Christmas and at Christmas, outside of Easter and at Easter, I believe it. And all the people who ask the question, some of them actually are just perplexed. I've been reached out to by a guy I follow on Instagram. He's an atheist from London. He's like, how can you believe this? It's like, how can I not believe it? I've seen it in my life. It's far easier, I suspect, for an atheist to say random acts, bad things happen just because, random acts, atoms swerving into atoms causing a timeline that we don't like. I don't believe that's the case. I believe there was a garden and we're exiled from it and we're filled with sin as a result of it, and that sin pollutes our whole world. And God came into the world to make all things new, and it's a slow process over time working in each of us, and one day he'll return to judge the quick and the dead, and we'll have eternal life with him. And until then, we will never be rid of these terrible stories of tragedy, of a school shooting at a Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin, or at Covenant in Nashville, or at Sandy Hook in Newtown, Connecticut, or at Appalachia High School, or at Parkland in Florida, and all these other things. And people just want to do something, but no one really at the national level wants to do what they need to do is get down on their knees and pray. Instead, they want to find politics and political maneuverings, and that's just part of our fallen culture as well. We're not going to get rid of these terrible things, but what we can all do is pray for the families of those who died, including the shooter. Here a week before Christmas. But that's bad things happening is not a reason to believe God doesn't exist, but a reason to hope for his return. All right. We got to get out of here. We'll be right back. All right. I feel bad and I don't. It just, my gosh. So remember last week we played you the video on this program. Last week, Clarissa Ward of CNN went into the Sinai prison in Syria, and they found someone who had not left the prison and rescued this person who was under covers, who was seemed to be shell shocked, and he didn't even know the war was over or people had been let out of the prison. It was a big deal. CNN scooped everybody. Clarissa Ward called it one of the most extraordinary moments she witnessed in 20 years of reporting. Well, Verify, which is a Syrian fact-checking group, claims that the innocent prisoner turned out to be Salama Mohammed Salama, first lieutenant in Syrian Air Force intelligence with a long history of war crimes, a major torturer for Bashar al-Assad. I mean, my goodness gracious. So Ward and the camera crew, escorted by a rebel fighter, visited the headquarters of the prison where people were tortured and freed the man under blankets. He gave his name Adel Gerbal and claimed to have been arrested by government authorities 3 months earlier. But it actually appears that he was hiding from the rebels and was able to be sneaked out of the prison because of the CNN team. CNN says it didn't fabricate it, that it actually happened. They're investigating it themselves. But yeah, it appears CNN might have actually helped a torturer for Bashar al-Assad get away from the rebels in doing this. It's become a big deal overnight, and the sorry, just wow. They're doing, my goodness, they're doing what they can now to investigate what actually happened. Oh boy. So anyway, yeah, turns out CNN maybe did not. So there's an account on Twitter that says MSNBC's Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid should actually one-up CNN and maybe bust Ayman al-Zawahiri, federal supermax, do it live on TV. Oh, the jokes write themselves. Poor CNN. They're not just doing it. Maybe they need to give me like an hour and see if I can redeem their ratings. I don't know that I want to do that, though. In any event, we're out of time. We will be back tomorrow. We got to get to the Hunga Tunga Hunga volcano stuff tomorrow. The left is freaking out. You know, this massive volcano blows up, sends bajillions of gallons of water into the atmosphere. And now they're like, we have no idea why the world is warming so fast. 2 years ago when it happened, they said the world would warm fast because of it. They've memory holed it to try to get more money out of the feds. We'll get to it. You guys have a great rest of the day.